Good morning, everyone. Thank you to my dear colleague Ines for having me. Thank you for listening to the inside story. I was asked to tell a little insight since Michiel also talked a little bit about the design of my museum. I've been a user for 5 years, but we've been living in the Maas since 2011 when the museum building opens. But before I'm going to talk about the building and its use and its advantages and disadvantages, I'm going to introduce ourselves for a little.
There was a time, and not that long ago, when Antwerp was home to the biggest port in the world. Countless ships were loaded and unloaded here. And every ship brought with it something that the people here hadn't seen before. The city attracted people from far and wide, and everyone who came and went left something behind. All those dreams and memories that somehow found their way to Antwerp come together in a river of tales. A river of tales which ends here, in the Maas. Here we investigate and organize these objects in order to show them to you and to future generations. In the meantime, we keep looking for an answer to the question, what memories will we pass on?
So I hope you enjoyed that one, because we had it specially made for today, so we had a premiere in this one. So thank you. Since we're always difficult to explain, we are a river of tales. We talk about Antwerp in the world and the world within Antwerp. And I'm going to guide you through some simple facts. We're 10 stories high, 5,700 square meters of exhibition space. We attract over 650,000 people annually to our site. We have 110 employees, which includes our security guys, it includes our cleaning ladies, it includes me, our curatorial staff. We've got 140 volunteers, people working with collections, helping us out. We've got a 2-star restaurant. I remember Ines calling yesterday about having a good restaurant, which really helps. We also have a simple bistro for common people like me. I don't go to the 2-star restaurant all the time, I have to say. Well, we have a collection over 500,000 pieces, and that comes from 5 collections. And I want to talk a little bit about that. We are a merge. So back in the late 1990s, there was a maritime museum in Antwerp, so that's one collection, and there was a city folklore collection or a city museum with an archaeological collection, that's 3, and they were in old buildings, not up to today's standards, and the city decided to build a new city maritime museum, and they wanted something spectacular, since the Antwerpen people are a bit fancy and they like themselves and they wanted to show off Brussels, obviously. They planned to have a good competition. And obviously the company of Neutelings Riedijk won the competition. And by that time, in 2000, a private collector, Dora Jansen, she wanted to donate her collection to the Flemish government, and they were in search for a place to showcase the wonderful objects of South American, pre-Columbian South American arts. And obviously we were the new kid in town, we had the fanciest building in Belgium, so the collection came to us, and that decided the city that we also would house the ethnographical museum. The ethnographical museum had its own building in the city center of Antwerp, but it was also an old building and not to today's standard, so they merged them all together. And then we made a radical choice, not to put the museums on top of each other, saying you can buy a ticket for an ethnographical museum or you can buy a ticket to a city museum. We decided to merge collections through one another because we feel that we can tell more and broader stories about life, about connection, because we feel as a museum we have an obligation to connect people to objects, but more important, to connect people to each other. That's our mission, to have worldwide connection to people in Antwerp and to people in the world, and to have people have more understanding of each other. So that's what we did. Obviously there were some concerns. People would think, oh, my collection will never get as much attention as it would have in an own museum. I'll get back to that later. So obviously we are in an iconic building right in the city, and Michiel shortly mentioned it, that we were in a place on the edge of harbor and city, and people were very skeptical about the location. People would say, no one will ever come to the museum unless you hire buses to get people from the markets from Antwerp to the museum. We've proven them wrong. 650,000 people annually is a lot, and they don't need buses to come. They just come walking and enjoy the site. The HoReCa, so restaurants and bars, quadrupled, so 4 times as many as there were in 2011. So the area we're up, it's up north in Antwerp, has developed massively, and we're a cool place to be, which is good as a museum. And it's nice if you can be a part of that. You can't open a touristic guide not seeing our iconic building. We're in top 10 list of most beautiful museum buildings around the globe, things you need to do when you're in Europe. We're in that kind of list. We appear in commercials, TV shows. You can see us everywhere, even when the giants visit Antwerp. And then for the scale, I put in this photo because you can nicely see visitors, grandma, and our building. So, talking about the advantages and disadvantages of our building, the iconic value is obviously an advantage. I never worry about money, or I do actually, but the museum is important to the city because we bring economic and touristic value. The iconic value is undescribable. So I don't have to argue the city politicians why we are important, because we attract people. That also brings me to a small joke that we tell at home, that the Maas doesn't have just one director, but we have 10, and I'm the 11th, because the success of the Maas obviously attracts a lot of people and everyone likes to claim it, which is good. Everyone wants to participate in our beautiful house. The iconic design also has a downside. For the first 5 years of when the museum was opened, we mostly talked about the building. We said, the Maas, you must have seen it. So everybody knows us. We appear in all those magazines, newspapers, and we appear everywhere. Can't miss us. The red stone is very iconic for the building. But people didn't know who we were. Some people actually didn't know we were a museum or that we housed objects. That's quite painful if you're a museum and you have 500,000 objects. So we needed to change that. We have this goal that within 5 years, people could at least name 3 objects that are in our collection, which is not much, but it's a difficult task to get there. So you've been looking to the rooftop for a while. I think the rooftop is a great feature in the design, although it wasn't initially intended to be a public rooftop. It was technical space, but during the process we discovered that it had the best view in Antwerp. So the building itself and the walking boulevard and the rooftop is free of entrance. You can enter our building from 9:30 in the morning till 10 in winter time, but even midnight, 12 o'clock in the summertime. There is even a saying in Antwerp called doing a maske doen, which actually translates to something like, oh, I just had a nice dinner with family and friends. I'm gonna go up to the Maas, enjoy the sunset and the view and have a romantic moment with my loved ones. So that's quite neat if you're a museum and people refer to you in doing a maske. I strongly believe that our rooftop is the difference. We make the difference with our rooftop. What we tend to see with new museum buildings, if I'm honest, is that the first year or the first and the second year, you have a lot of visitors. But after that, visitors numbers tend to drop dramatically. And maybe you can get them up high a little bit with a good temporary exhibition, but you'll never get back to the first days when people were waiting in line for you to see, for them to see the building. We never had that problem. We have at least 650,000 people visiting us every year, in a good year even more than 700,000. That gives us a huge disadvantage. It's the rooftop, but also the boulevard, and we're going to come back to that, so I'll show you a little, where you just can be, even when the weather is wrong, when the weather is bad, it's cold and rainy, you can enjoy the city, and we even provide picnic blankets for people to just sit there and meet each other, because we feel it's important and it's our duty or our obligation to have people connect and use our building. So that gives us a huge advantage. People are already passing our front door, so it's easy to communicate with them. But over the last couple of years, we've changed our strategy and made some changes in communication, and I'm going to talk you through that. But first, I'm going to show you some pictures of the gallery, so you have some idea what it actually looks like inside. We have an open storage. The museum is built as a museum, which gives us a huge advantage, obviously. There are closed boxes, as Michiel explains, just closed boxes stacked on top of each other. The security is well in order. We have a closed core where objects can travel through, where they don't meet public, so it's completely safe. There is no daylight, which is good for objects. It also enables us to point out what we really want to show them. Temperature is easy to control due to a clever system, where the climate in the museum boxes are always the same, and in the walking boulevard they have an outside temperature and something in between, which is really cool. But they're closed boxes. We saw that one before. Our newest exhibition, Cool Japan, one of the permanent exhibitions. The closed boxes gives us a disadvantage. People don't realize we're a museum, although 650,000 people keep passing by the doors, but they don't have any clue what's inside. So we made a drastic change in the outside and with how we communicate. So there is light boxes right next to the entrance of every museum hall, which tells what's inside. Here you see just a light box of a temporary exhibition, but on the permanent exhibitions we do display something of the inside of the exhibition to have people how we say that, tickled a little bit to want to go inside. We always show some collection and always show people. We ask a question in 4 languages, so because we're in Belgium, in every store you have a different question. For example, what's gold worth for you? Because we try people to talk and think about what we are doing. Let me see. Yeah, but that's not enough. So we tried to bring the inside out. And because the climate in the walking boulevard is not regulated, so it has an outside temperature, can be freezing during wintertime, can be very hot during summertime, you can't really put objects there. But we try to think of fun features that are, as we call them, Instagrammable, so people want to put it on Instagram, and people would see it and would think, oh, that's kind of funny, we need to be there. So this is quite a good example. We placed this 6-meter-high Buddha in the walking boulevard when we had an exhibition about Buddha and mind. It's actually a real-size replica of a Buddha in Tibet, and it got a lot of attention. We placed a diamond where we had an exhibition about dazzling designer. The only thing we want is to have people to talk about content, because the building is important, but, well, I'm not all about the building. Actually, I'm a museum director, so I want to talk about objects and heritage. It helped a lot. But we also make exhibitions. So as you go to the rooftop, you have to pass 8 escalators, and we try to program an exhibition there. Obviously, most of the time we do photo exhibitions, because that's easy in climate. We either show our collections or we show Antwerp and its inhabitants. And here you see a fun example. We did a project about Corner Shop, which is, as you all know, a little shop in the street where you can either buy bread or Turkish olives or butcher. Or well, we did some research in Antwerp to all those little shops and see how they developed over 100 years, how family stories were developed. And we made portraits of them. So here you see a Jewish baker, and we had them in the boulevard. And it was fantastic, because Antwerp has 178 nationalities, and they were all, not all of them, but a lot of them were represented, or they felt represented in our boulevard. They stay along for a year, so it's our best visited exhibition, as you can imagine, with this amount of people passing by. The design of the wonderful walking boulevard, the open space that Michiel told was so important for museums, for people to gather, we obviously use to interact with our communities. We organize events. For example, we have every year a masked ball for young people. So then I'm not a museum director, but I'm the director of the largest nightclub of the Benelux. We have 10 storages of bars, dancing floors. But the young people, 2,300, actually do visit the museum exhibition halls as well. And it's a fun way to interact. But we also invite the communities to come. And here's a good example of the Dia de los Muertos, which we celebrate, obviously, with the Mexican community. The Embassy of Mexico always makes an altar, and we invite always an artist from Antwerp to make an Antwerpen altar. We talk about life and death, which is an important subject. We all share that subject, and we also party. And it's a fun way for the Mexican community to come to our house to talk about their heritage, which we host within the 500,000 objects. And it's also a good way to meet and just have a good afternoon. So the building does help to communicate with potential visitors. It gives us enough space to interact, and in an easy and accessible way. It's not high level. You don't think, oh God, that's art and it's too difficult, I'm not engaged. It's easy. But in the end, we obviously want people to buy a ticket, come inside. Normally we would have 1/3 of the people, of the 650,000 people who would buy a ticket and go visit the galleries. At the moment we have Cool Japan, the exhibition, which enables us to have more than half of the people paying. So we're having wonderful times in Antwerp at the moment. But it all comes down to engagement, and it comes down to interact with people and having them to understand why we are all connected and why our heritage is connected. And that gives me back to one last example, if I may. That's Maas in Young Hands. It's our young crew. We've been working with them right from the opening in 2011. They work alongside, they are volunteers between 16 and 26. And they change. Some stay for a year, some stayed for 5 or 6 years. We won international prizes because we let them participate, and a lot of museums came to the Maas to see how we did that, because we all want young people to engage. But then I was very critical, because I thought, well, participation, what is participation? If we just invite them right at the end of our whole process, what's the fun in that? We need to trust them, open up, and just let them be. So I challenged them, gave them a good budget, 100,000 euros, my biggest exhibition hall, and I said to them, you can have it, interact with our collection, see where you get. And they actually made a full exhibition, and we never interfered. I said in the beginning, I said, I want to see the design, and if I hate it, I will tell you, and you need to choose a different one, because it's my head in the end. But I never need to use that video, because they just did. If you trust people and let them in and take participation to another level, you can come really, really far. We really we learned as a team, professionals also a lot by having other people come in and tell a little bit about it. And I think the Maas helps us to do so. So, in the end, one could conclude that a museum can have success by its building. It can help a lot with success. It can help develop a city area, which is wonderful, obviously. To those who didn't believe that we would ever be a success, obviously the number I've said it so many times this morning, I'm not going to repeat it. But we know that collections that were on display before have not been seen as much as it is now, because we merge the collections, more people are able to see it. So I think it's a good one. I think a good building can help us, but in the end, it's all about communication, about interaction, about connecting and engaging. So I welcome you to the Maas, where the world meets Antwerp, and Antwerp meets the world. Thank you.